I stared at my husband across the kitchen island, the granite countertop suddenly feeling like a chasm between us. "You're joking," I said. It wasn't a question. My hands gripped the edge so hard my knuckles went white. Michael wasn't joking. His jaw was set that way it gets when he's already made up his mind, when he's decided this conversation isn't a negotiation. It's an announcement. "Sarah's 7 months pregnant," he said quietly. "Her boyfriend ghosted her. She has nowhere to go." I felt the air leave my lungs. 7 months. That meant she was already showing. That meant this wasn't some abstract future problem. This was happening now, or would be in a matter of weeks. "And you told her she could stay here? In our house? Without asking me first?" My voice came out higher than I intended, that pitch I hate, the one that makes me sound panicked instead of angry. But I was both. I was furious, and I was terrified, and I didn't even fully understand why yet. 3 months earlier, everything had been perfect. The kind of perfect that sneaks up on you so gradually you don't realize you're living the dream until someone threatens to wreck it. We bought the house in Elmwood Falls 2 years ago, a 2,400 square foot colonial with white shutters and a wraparound porch that faced the cul-de-sac. The down payment had cleaned us out, but we'd made it work. Michael's salary as a software architect at TechCore Solutions was solid, steady. My freelance copywriting brought in another 30 to 40 grand a year, enough that we weren't stressed about the mortgage. The house had become our identity. We threw dinner parties. We hosted Thanksgiving. Our friends joked that we'd become the couple with the perfect place. And we were trying. God, were we trying. I'd been off the pill for 18 months. At first, it felt like an adventure, the romantic notion of whenever it happens, it happens. By month 6, it felt like failure. By month 12, it felt like grief. Every period was a small death. Every negative test was a tiny betrayal by my own body. I'd started tracking ovulation, taking supplements, reading forums at midnight. Michael would find me on my phone at 2 a.m., scrolling through Reddit threads about implantation symptoms, and he'd gently take it away and pull me into bed. "It'll happen," he'd say. "I know it will." The fertility clinic appointment started in February. Dr. Reeves, a kind woman with gray streaks in her hair and an office that smelled like lavender, ran tests. Everything came back normal. "Unexplained infertility," she said. The diagnosis felt like a cosmic joke. Nothing was wrong. Nothing was right either. We did 2 cycles of Clomid. Both failed. By September, we were scheduled to start IVF in November. We'd scraped together $32,000 from savings and a personal loan. That money represented hope. It represented our future. Michael and I were good. Better than good. We'd been together 8 years, married for 5. He still left me notes in my lunch bag. Stupid things, little jokes, drawings of our dog, Pepper, looking stupid. We had sex regularly. We laughed. We had plans. The nursery was going to be pale yellow with a mural of hot air balloons. I'd already picked out the crib. We were ready. At least, I thought we were. Michael's sister, Sarah, had always been the troubled one. Not troubled like addicted to drugs troubled, but troubled like emotionally volatile, romantically impulsive, financially chaotic. She was 5 years younger than Michael, 29 to his 34, and she seemed to make decisions the way other people blinked, thoughtlessly, reflexively, without considering consequences. She'd dropped out of college twice. She'd had 4 jobs in 3 years. She'd moved to Portland, then back to Ohio, then to Colorado. Her relationships ended spectacularly. I'd lost count of how many times Michael had loaned her money. I liked Sarah. She was fun, spontaneous, the kind of person who could make a Tuesday night feel like an adventure. But I also knew she wasn't the kind of person you could build a stable life around. And I knew, I'd known for years, that Michael had a savior complex when it came to his sister. He felt responsible for her in a way that went deeper than normal sibling affection. It had something to do with their father leaving when they were kids, with Michael being the man of the house at 14, with him somehow internalizing the belief that he had to fix everything for everyone. 3 weeks before the kitchen island conversation, Sarah had called. Michael took it in the garage. I pretended not to listen, but of course I listened. I heard him say, "Oh, baby, no." I heard him say, "When?" I heard him say, "We'll figure it out." When he came back inside, his face was tight. "Sarah's pregnant," he said. I remember thinking, that's nice. I remember the small stab of envy I didn't let myself feel fully. I remember saying, "Oh, is she happy about it?" "I think so," Michael said. "The guy, Derek, he's not being great about it." That was the understatement of the year. Derek, it turned out, had blocked her number. He'd unfollowed her on Instagram. He'd moved back to his ex-girlfriend's apartment. He'd done everything except take out a restraining order. Sarah was alone and pregnant and panicking. Michael had been calling her every day since. I'd see him on the porch with his phone, pacing, his free hand gesturing like she could see him. "You're going to be amazing," I heard him say once. "This baby is lucky. You're going to love being a mom." I believed him when he said those things. I just didn't realize he was already planning to move her into our house. The night he announced it, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed next to him at 3 a.m., my mind running through scenarios like a horror movie on loop. Sarah waddling around our kitchen at 7 months pregnant, her water breaking on our cream-colored sofa. Sarah in the spare bedroom, the room I'd imagined as the nursery, the room where I was supposed to be in a few months if the IVF worked. Sarah's baby crying all night while I was trying to recover from egg retrieval, trying to heal, trying not to lose my mind. "This isn't fair," I'd said to Michael in the kitchen after the announcement. "We're trying to have a baby. We're about to start IVF. I can't have your pregnant sister living here while I'm going through hormonal injections and—" I'd stopped myself. I was starting to cry, and I hated crying in front of him when I was angry. It made me feel manipulative. "I just can't." "I know it's not ideal," Michael said, "but she has nowhere else to go. Her mom can't help her. You know how it is with them." Her mom, his mom, Janet, that was another whole disaster. Michael's mother had been furious when Sarah told her about the pregnancy. Furious and disappointed and judgmental in that particular way that only mothers can be. She'd told Sarah she was throwing her life away. She'd said things that, according to Michael, she couldn't take back. So that door was closed. "She could get her own apartment," I'd said. "She could—" "On what income?" Michael interrupted. "She just got fired from her job. She's got no savings. She's got $17,000 in credit card debt." "Of course she did." "Then we give her money to get an apartment," I said. "We help her that way. But we don't invite her to live here. Not now. Not while we're doing this." Michael had looked at me for a long moment. His expression was sad but also firm. "I already told her she could come." The words hung in the air between us like a bad smell. He'd already told her. The decision was made. I was being informed, not consulted. "When?" I asked. "Next month, as soon as she gives notice at her apartment in Denver." Next month, October, 3 weeks before my first IVF retrieval appointment, 3 weeks before my body became a science experiment, before hormones and needles and ultrasounds and the desperate, fragile hope that maybe, finally, we'd get our baby. "Michael," I said, my voice was very quiet, "I don't think you understand what you're asking of me." He crossed his arms. "I think I do. I'm asking you to make space for my sister, for my niece or nephew, for family." Family. That word should have meant something beautiful. Instead, it felt like a trap snapping shut. I didn't sleep that night. Around 5 a.m., I got up and went to the spare bedroom, my imaginary nursery. I sat on the floor in the dark and thought about how fast everything could change, how you could be building one dream and someone else could be building a different dream in the same house, and those dreams could collide and destroy each other, and there was nothing you could do about it because you'd already made a promise. You'd already said, in sickness and in health. You'd already given your whole self to another person. I thought about Sarah's baby. I thought about my empty womb. I thought about the $32,000 sitting in our account, waiting. I thought about how sometimes the people who love you can hurt you without meaning to, or maybe they don't care if they mean to or not. By the time Michael found me there, sitting on the floor at dawn, Something fundamental had shifted inside me. Not broken exactly, just shifted, like a crack in the foundation that you know is going to get worse, no matter how much spackle you use. Michael found me there at dawn, sitting on the cold hardwood floor of the spare bedroom. He didn't say anything at first. He just stood in the doorway, still in his boxers and the old TechCore Solutions t-shirt he slept in, and looked at me like I was a stranger. "Hey," he said finally. His voice was rough. "Come back to bed." "No," I said. I wasn't angry anymore. That was almost worse. Anger would have given me something to do with my hands, my voice, my face. This, whatever this was, left me hollowed out. "I'm going to call Dr. Reeves today. I'm going to tell her we need to postpone the IVF." Michael's face went pale. "What? No. Why would you—" "Because I can't do this." I looked up at him. "I can't inject myself with hormones while your sister is downstairs. I can't recover from egg retrieval with a pregnant woman in my house. I can't— Michael, I can't share this space with her right now." "She's family," he said. The same words, always the same words. "I know she is." My voice didn't shake. That was the terrifying part, how calm I sounded. "But I'm your wife, and you didn't ask me. You didn't even discuss it. You just decided, and then you told me it was happening. And now I'm supposed to what? Be grateful? Be supportive?" He crossed his arms. "I thought you'd understand." "Understand what? That your sister matters more than our baby? That your need to rescue her matters more than my need to become a mother?" "That's not fair," he said. "Fair?" I laughed. It came out bitter. "Michael, you spent $32,000 of our money we borrowed, on IVF. We talked about it for months. We made a plan. And then you made a different plan without me, and you're telling me I have to live with it." He sat down on the edge of the bed, the one we'd picked out together at Pottery Barn, the one with the ridiculous expensive sheets I'd insisted on. "I couldn't say no to her," he said quietly. "Yes, you could have." "I don't know how." There it was, the real answer. Not that Sarah needed him, not that he was being noble or self-sacrificing. He literally didn't know how to say no to her, and because he didn't know how to say no to her, I was the one who had to say it. I was the bad guy. Sarah moved in on October 2nd. She arrived in a U-Haul with boxes and bags and the kind of chaotic energy that immediately made our house feel smaller. Michael helped her carry boxes up to the spare bedroom, my imaginary nursery, now her temporary home. I stayed downstairs and made coffee I didn't drink. Pepper, our golden retriever, followed Sarah around like she'd invented joy. She was beautiful in that particular way that pregnant women can be, her face glowing, her hand resting on her stomach. 7 months along meant she was due in November. 2 months. I tried not to think about what that meant, tried not to calculate the timeline. IVF retrieval would be in 3 weeks. Transfer, if we got that far, would be 2 weeks after that. If it worked, if I got pregnant, if everything went perfectly, I'd be 7 weeks along when Sarah gave birth. I'd be in the worst part of first trimester nausea and exhaustion, already terrified, already fragile, and my husband's sister would be upstairs with a newborn. "Thank you so much for this," Sarah said, finding me in the kitchen. She was holding a mug of tea, moving slowly, the way pregnant women do. "I know this is weird. I know it's not ideal, but Michael said you guys were so supportive, and I couldn't face going to Mom's, and Derek—" She trailed off, her eyes getting shiny. "Derek's not going to be involved, so this is my fresh start, you know? I'm going to get my life together. I'm going to be an amazing mom." I looked at her, really looked at her. She was terrified. That much was obvious. She was trying to smile, but her chin was trembling. She was a mess, and she was counting on us to catch her. "It's fine," I heard myself say. "We're happy to help." The lie came out smooth as butter. The first 2 weeks weren't actually terrible. Sarah was grateful in an almost desperate way. She did dishes without being asked. She went to the grocery store. She tried to be unobtrusive, which made me feel guilty for resenting her presence. Michael seemed lighter, relieved, like a weight he'd been carrying had finally been put down. He'd saved his sister. He was a good man. He could sleep at night. I started my IVF protocol on October 15th. The first shot was in the thigh, follistim, a hormone that would stimulate my ovaries to produce multiple eggs. I did it myself, the way Dr. Reeves had shown me in the office. Michael held my hand. The needle was tiny, smaller than I expected, but going into my own skin felt surreal. This was real now. This was happening. This was my body becoming a medical experiment. The injections had to be done at the same time every evening, 7 p.m. I set a phone alarm. Every night at 7, I'd go to the bathroom, clean my skin with alcohol, pinch the flesh above my hip, and push the needle in. Every night, a little twinge of pain. Every night, a reminder that I was doing this, all of this, in a house that no longer felt entirely mine. Sarah would be in the kitchen. Michael would be checking on her, making sure she had enough water, enough snacks, asking how she was feeling. And I'd be upstairs, alone, stabbing myself with a needle, trying not to think about whether any of this was worth it. By week 3, I was bloated and uncomfortable. The hormones made me feel like my body was being inflated from the inside. My breasts hurt. I was moody in a way that scared me, snapping at Michael over nothing, crying at commercials, then laughing at myself for crying. Sarah, in her infinite pregnant empathy, started making special dinners for me. Low-sodium options, soft foods. She was being kind, which made everything worse. "You're doing so great," she said one evening, watching me push food around my plate. "This is so brave. Derek's ex, she did IVF, and she said it was the hardest thing she ever did." I didn't say anything. I couldn't. If I opened my mouth, I'd scream. The retrieval was scheduled for November 3rd. I had to take the trigger shot, HCG, human chorionic gonadotropin, exactly 36 hours before. The trigger shot was different, thicker, more painful. Michael gave it to me, his hands shaking slightly, and I felt a surge of tenderness toward him. He was trying. He was nervous for me. Maybe this could still work. Maybe we could still be okay. The night before retrieval, Sarah went into labor. I know because I heard her cry out. It was around 2 a.m. I'd been awake anyway, too anxious to sleep, too wired on adrenaline and hormones. The sound came from downstairs, a low moan that turned into something sharper. Michael was already moving, already out of bed. "I'm sorry," Sarah was saying when I got downstairs. "I'm so sorry, I think it's happening. The contractions started around midnight, and I didn't want to wake you, but they're getting closer, and I'm scared." "It's okay," Michael said. He was already grabbing his keys. "We're going to the hospital. This is good. This means your baby is coming. Everything's going to be fine." He looked at me. "Come with us?" I looked at Sarah, bent over in pain, her hands gripping the kitchen counter. I looked at Michael, ready to play hero again. I looked at my hands, which were shaking. "I can't," I said. "My retrieval is in—" I checked my phone. 14 hours. I need to sleep. I need to be ready. Michael's face did something complicated. "Right, yeah, of course." "I'm so sorry," Sarah whispered between contractions. "Don't be," I said, and I meant it in a way that had nothing to do with her labor, and everything to do with the fact that she was about to have a baby, and I might not. "Go. Michael, go with her. I'll see you after retrieval." They left in a flurry of coats and hospital bags, and Michael's worried face in the rearview mirror. I went back to bed alone and stared at the ceiling until dawn. The retrieval was a blur. Anesthesia, then nothing, then waking up in recovery with a nurse asking if I was okay. "We got 17 eggs," Dr. Reeves said, appearing beside the bed with a smile. "That's a good number. That's really good." 17 eggs, 17 chances. The number should have made me happy. Instead, I felt numb. Michael called while I was still there, my abdomen cramping, a heating pad on my lap. "It's a girl," he said. His voice was thick with emotion. "Sarah had a girl, 8 pounds, 3 ounces. They named her Emma. She's perfect." I said congratulations. I said that was wonderful. I said I was happy for them. All of it was true, and all of it was a lie. Michael came to pick me up 2 hours later. He reeked of hospital, that particular cocktail of antiseptic and exhaustion. His eyes were red-rimmed and shining. "I can't stay long," he said. "Sarah's having trouble nursing. I need to get back." Of course he did. The next 5 days were a nightmare. The retrieval had left me sore and bloated. I was supposed to rest, supposed to avoid heavy lifting and strenuous activity. Instead, I heard a baby crying constantly. Emma had colic. Sarah was struggling with postpartum pain and hormones, and the reality of being a single mother. Michael was upstairs with them almost constantly, helping with the baby, bringing Sarah meals, running to the pharmacy for nipple cream and pain medication. I sat downstairs alone, watching my phone, waiting for the call from the clinic. On day 6, Dr. Reeves called. "We have 6 embryos that made it to day 5, she said. "They're all good quality. We can do a fresh transfer today, or we can freeze them and do a transfer next cycle." 6 out of 17. That was a 35% fertilization rate. It should have been better. Shouldn't it have been better? "Fresh transfer," I said. I didn't even think about it. I just wanted this to be over. I wanted to get pregnant and have this nightmare end and go back to my life. "Okay," Dr. Reeves said. "Get here in 2 hours." I drove myself to the clinic, against Michael's wishes, but he was too busy with Sarah to argue. The transfer was quick and painless, which somehow made it worse. They showed me a picture of the embryo they were transferring. One beautiful, healthy blastocyst going into my uterus. Then it was done. I was pregnant, as far as science could tell, and I wouldn't know if it had worked for 2 weeks. When I got home, Emma was screaming. Sarah was crying. Michael was on the phone with Janet, Sarah's mother, trying to convince her to come help. "How did it go?" Michael asked, noticing me. "Fine," I said. "It went fine." "That's great," he said, but he was already turning back to Sarah, who needed something, a glass of water, a pain pill, a reassurance that she was doing okay, that she was going to be okay, that everything was going to be fine. I went upstairs to bed. The 2 weeks of waiting were the longest of my life. I couldn't exercise, I couldn't have sex, I couldn't do anything but exist and think about whether a cluster of cells was dividing correctly in my uterus. Meanwhile, downstairs, Sarah was learning how to be a mother. Michael was helping her learn. I could hear them sometimes, Michael's patient voice explaining how to swaddle, Sarah's voice getting stronger, more confident. By day 12, I couldn't take it anymore. I was in the kitchen making tea when Sarah came down. She was moving better now, less like she'd been hit by a truck. Emma was asleep in the bassinet in the living room. Michael was at work. At least, he was trying to maintain some semblance of normalcy. "I wanted to talk to you," Sarah said. She was nervous. I could tell by the way she was picking at her nails. "About staying longer. Michael said it was okay, but I wanted to ask you directly. Derek's still not interested in being involved, and I don't have enough saved to get my own place, and I was thinking, maybe I could stay another couple months, just until I get on my feet." I looked at her young face, her exhausted eyes, her hands that were already capable of soothing a baby. She had what I wanted. She had it by accident, by carelessness, by sleeping with a man who didn't love her enough to stay. "No," I said. "I'm sorry?" "No, you can't stay another couple months. You need to make other arrangements." Sarah's face crumpled. "But Michael said—" "I don't care what Michael said. This is my house too, and I need you to leave." "But Emma," Sarah's voice broke. "I don't have anywhere to go. I don't have money. I don't have—" "That's not my problem," I said, and I meant it. I was done being the supportive wife. I was done making space for everyone else's crisis. "You have 2 weeks." Sarah stared at me. Then she turned and walked back upstairs, and I heard her crying, and I didn't feel bad. I felt lighter. I felt like I'd finally done something for myself. That evening, Michael came home and found me in the kitchen. He already knew what had happened. "You told her to leave?" His voice was quiet, dangerous quiet. "Yes. We talked about this. I said she could stay." "You decided she could stay," I interrupted. "You didn't ask me. You never ask me. You just decide things, and I'm supposed to be fine with it. And I'm not fine with it, Michael. I'm not." "She just had a baby." "I know she did. I've heard the baby crying every night for 2 weeks. I've watched you take care of her instead of taking care of me. I've been upstairs in pain, waiting to find out if I'm pregnant, and you've been downstairs learning how to swaddle your niece." Michael's face went hard. "Are you really going to make this about you right now?" "Yes," I said. "Yes, I am, because it is about me. It's been about me this whole time, and you've been ignoring that." "I'm trying to help my sister." "I know, but what about helping me? When am I going to get help?" He didn't have an answer. He just stood there, and I could see the moment he realized I was serious. I could see him calculating whether he could convince me to change my mind, and when he realized he couldn't, I could see him choose. He chose Sarah. "If she leaves," he said slowly, "then you and I are done." The words hung in the air like a physical thing. I waited for him to take them back. I waited for him to realize what he was saying, to understand that he was choosing his sister's temporary housing over his marriage. He didn't take them back. "Okay," I said. The next morning I called my mother. I didn't tell her everything, just that Michael and I needed some space, and could I come stay with her for a while. She said yes without asking questions. By afternoon, I'd packed a suitcase. I didn't take much: clothes, toiletries, the documents I'd need, my medical records from Dr. Reeves, the paperwork from our IVF cycle. Sarah tried to talk to me as I was leaving. "Please don't go. This is my fault. I shouldn't have asked to stay longer, please." "It's not your fault," I said, and I meant it. None of this was Sarah's fault. She hadn't asked to be abandoned by Derek. She hadn't asked to become pregnant. She hadn't asked her brother to turn their spare bedroom into her safety net. "I'm not mad at you." "Are you mad at Michael?" I thought about that. Was I angry? Yes. Was I also devastated? Absolutely. But underneath both of those things was something harder, something colder. I was done. "No," I said. "I'm not mad at him. I'm just done." I got in my car and drove to my mother's house. I didn't look back at the Colonial with white shutters. I didn't think about the kitchen island where Michael had made his announcement. I didn't let myself imagine what the nursery would have looked like if things had gone differently. My mother didn't ask questions. She made up the guest bedroom and brought me tea and held my hand when I cried, which was every night for the first week. On day 14 after the transfer, I took a pregnancy test. It was negative. The embryo hadn't taken. The beautiful blastocyst they'd transferred so carefully had failed to implant. I had spent $32,000 and injected myself with hormones and retrieved 17 eggs and created 6 embryos and gotten nothing to show for it except a marriage that was now officially over. I called Michael from my mother's house. "I'm not pregnant," I said. He didn't say anything for a long moment. Then, "I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry." The embryo didn't implant. It failed. We failed. "We didn't fail. The embryo. Sometimes they just don't work. It's not your fault. It's not anyone's fault." But it felt like someone's fault. It felt like the universe's fault, or God's fault, or my fault for being so angry that I'd somehow manifested the negative result through sheer emotional force. "I want a divorce," I said. "No," Michael said immediately. "No, we can try again. We have 5 more embryos. We can do another transfer. We can—" "I don't want to do another transfer. I don't want to stay in that house. I don't want to be married to someone who would choose his sister over me." "I didn't choose her over you." "Yes, you did. You chose her comfort over my mental health. You chose your guilt about her over my needs. And I'm done. I'm done fighting for this." I hung up before he could respond. The divorce was surprisingly simple. Michael didn't fight me. Maybe because he felt guilty. Maybe because he knew he was wrong. Maybe because Sarah needed him too much to spend time arguing with me. We sold the house in Elmwood Falls. I got my share of the equity, which covered the $32,000 IVF loan and left me with a little over $60,000. Not enough to restart my life, but enough to survive while I figured out what that life was going to look like. I didn't do another IVF cycle. I got tested again, saw another fertility specialist, and got the same diagnosis: unexplained infertility. The new specialist recommended adoption. My mother offered to help me pay for it, but I was tired. I was heartbroken. I was 34 years old and I didn't know how to want a baby anymore without it feeling like punishment. Michael married someone else 2 years later, a woman named Jessica who didn't have fertility issues, who got pregnant easily, who gave him the 3 kids he apparently always wanted. He and Sarah are close, apparently. Sarah stabilized. She got a job. She got her own apartment. Emma started school. Everything worked out for them. I moved to Portland. I built a life that didn't include a nursery or a husband or the desperate monthly hope of a positive test. I got a dog from a shelter, an anxious rescue who needed someone patient. I joined a book club. I made friends. I became a person who existed for myself, not in relation to what I wanted or what I'd lost. It took 3 years to stop being angry. It took 5 years to stop being sad. It took 7 years to look back at that night, sitting on the floor of the spare bedroom while Michael slept, and understand that it wasn't the end of my story. It was just the moment everything changed. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if I'd said yes, if I'd let Sarah stay and had somehow made it work, if I'd been stronger or kinder or less selfish. But mostly, I've made peace with the fact that I couldn't. I could only be who I was, a woman who wanted something desperately and wasn't willing to want it in a house full of resentment. Michael reached out 3 years after the divorce. He wanted to apologize. He wanted to explain. He wanted to know if there was any chance we could talk about what happened. I told him there wasn't, not because I hated him, but because talking about it wouldn't change anything. He'd made his choice. I'd made mine. And we'd both had to live with the consequences. I don't have kids. I don't have a husband. I don't have the life I planned. But I have my own apartment in Portland with a good view and no one crying in the next room. I have my freedom and my dignity and the knowledge that I was willing to walk away from something I wanted because staying would have destroyed me. That's not the ending I chose, but it's the ending I got, and somehow that's enough.